Get myself centered here. Hello, it's Kathy McAllister, another impromptu live. Hi, Virginia. Hi, Loretta. Yeah, just decided to go ahead. I really wanted to paint this piece, and I just thought, well, I'll jump on live, and if you're available, that's fine. Otherwise, it's just going to be available for replay. But I just wanted to show you how I wanted to do an ombre background, so where you get the gradation of colors going from the bottom to the top. So I worked on the colors first. Thanks, Loretta. Yeah, I just love this piece. I think it's so adorable. But anyway, I played with this a little while ago, and I did it on the back of this jar. And then I also, I did this rusty lid. So I'm going to get rid of my face here too. So anyway, I hope you all are doing well and keeping out of the heat. We've had some really weird weather here. We've had a lot of summery weather, but we've also had a lot of rain, which is very uncommon for Colorado. So this piece, it's not on my website yet, but it is going to be. And it's about 11.5 inches. I am able to do this a little bit bigger too for people who want a slightly bigger wall or door hanger. And I'm also thinking about just selling the wood surface jar without this piece, because I know a lot of people like to paint on the mason jar, that kind of look. But I turned this around. I did this on the back. So normally on the back, I would just do a solid color because you're never really going to see it. Yeah, I don't know. This year I'm enjoying the summer a little bit more than I usually do. A lot of times I hide from it, but this year, I don't know, I'm enjoying the heat. But I don't know about bike riding and jogging and doing all that in it. But anyway, so I love this ombre effect. I threw in a little bit of color. I threw in this bit of color in here to represent kind of the color around the horizon or aurora lights. And you could just do it, white up to blue. So you don't have to throw that in. But I'm going to show you how I blended all these colors. And this side, of course, you're not going to end up seeing a lot of it. So a lot of the white that you put down here really isn't going to show up. So you get a much better feeling for the way it looks on the back. So you really only get a smidge of color here. But that's fine. That's just the way it goes. So I got my palette paper, and the colors that I'm using in this are Snow White, and then I'm moving to Blue Haven. Then I'm moving to the new color Gingham Blue, and then the new color Grecian Blue, and in the middle I've got Fuchsia Pop. So that's how I'm doing that. And then I'll also show you how I did the lid to get it to kind of look like a rusty lid. So even though we're not going to see a lot of the white, the process of blending is important as we go up. And I'm just going to work on this like the snow person isn't there, because I want this blending to occur. And if I just do a little white here, I could just do a little white here and sort of bring it up the sides and then just start with the Blue Haven. So, I can do that. But to show you the process, because you may want to do this background on another piece, I'm going to go ahead and do the full thing. If you're doing this kit, certainly you could just work on the outside with the white and then start with the Blue Haven. You could use colors, any kind of harmonious colors you can use. Like you've got crystal blue and aqua sky and turquoise and desert turquoise and some of those colors. And you could do that, those colors. But this, I tend to gravitate to those colors, and I wanted to use more true blue in this project. Okay, so I'm going to start with the white, and I use stencil brushes for this. You can use like furniture burnishing brushes, any kind of stiff brushes. If you've got dry brushes that are big enough, and I've got enough stencil brushes that I'm able to use a brush for each color. And you grab a paper towel as well. You'll need a paper towel. So when you first start putting the paint down, everything's pretty dry, so it's not going to want to take onto the raw wood as easily as once you have a layer of paint down, then it tends to move and glide a little bit more. So this is going to go down initially kind of wet, and we'll want to control some of that wetness as we start blending. So I'm kind of, in the beginning, I'm kind of going in swirly movements. And also because there's a curve, I did not seal it, Loretta. I'm just going straight into this. You could sand and seal and do all that if you want, but I'm just not doing it. I'm just going straight into this. But you're going to get a little bit of a U going on here because remember this is supposed to represent a jar. So you're going to get a little curving, and like the snow is going to curve up the side of the jar. And it's going to take a little bit to get the full coverage here. You'll be able to tell when you don't have complete coverage because you'll see like little bits of the wood color peeping through there. So as it dries, we're going to build colors. So I'm going to dry it a little bit, and I'm going to add some more white. And I'm not too worried right now about how wet my brush is because I haven't introduced any new colors yet, and I want some good coverage at the bottom, at the base here. So I'm not going to worry too much about how wet my brush is. And as it dries, I'm just going to start bringing the brush up into the next area. And when you do this, you're going to go back over it and over to blend and blend and blend. So it's kind of a process of layering. Okay, so then the next color is the Blue Haven. If you do have a brush for each color, that's great. But if not, you can use a dirty brush. Like you can share the white with the Blue Haven or the Blue Haven with the Gingham blue or whatever. And it helps, sometimes when you do that, it helps to blend colors because you're changing the colors and blending them as you go. So the colors will start melding and layering really well. Sometimes when you use a dirty brush and you move from one light color to a darker color. So I probably didn't need to dry that off. When I first come here, I shouldn't have dried that off. Just kind of tap it. So when you come here and it's wet, I try not to take the wet part of the brush directly into the area where I'm blending. I wait till it gets a little drier, and then as it starts to dry, I come back in and blend into that area so that you don't want any kind of line developing. So you want it to be a really smooth gradient movement from one color to another. So you don't want to see any like distinct lines. Okay, so you don't want to rub so hard. Like here's an area that I need more paint. I didn't go back over it while it was wet because you want to make sure you don't burnish a hole in that area. So you want to be careful when you're applying these colors that you don't rub so hard that you create a hot spot. So I want the pink to go right about here. So I'm going to do some more work. I'm going to bring the Blue Haven up a little bit more. Okay. So blending into the area that I was working. And I'm going into the pink area now. But all these colors are layered. They're not going to be just one color. Yeah, I love this technique for backgrounds. It's just a subtle, easy, way to do backgrounds. And when you're doing laser cut pieces, it adds a little bit of something special. So, because it's easy just to kind of like paint white, paint blue, put your layered piece on top of it. Well, I like to add a little something extra. And so an ombre background, when you're doing these pieces, kind of adds just a touch of sophistication. Let's face it. Girl's got to have her sophistication. So I'm going back into the white, and I'm blending up a little bit more. And we do want that white to kind of swoop up the sides a little bit because it is a jar and you're trying to show the curvature. And we're just kind of going back over some of the areas that were blue and blending. And eventually you'll know when you've got enough of the colors down. It will feel right to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my Fuchsia Pop. And when you're doing the Fuchsia Pop, it probably is a very good idea to have a separate brush for that. I probably wouldn't want, because then the blue and you either are going to get pink or you're going to get purple if you're mixing the colors. And purple might be a good idea, but I kind of like this Fuchsia Pop color. So using a separate brush will preserve a little bit more of the original color. So I'm just laying that down. And now it's super dry, and I'm just taking it up into the empty space. Okay. And now I'm going to come back with my Blue Haven, and I'm going to blend. And you can see, like I said, if you've got like this beige coming through, that means that's the MDF wood that you're still seeing. That needs more coverage. Because this isn't as simple as put a coat of paint down, put 2 coats of paint down and you're done. The layers go down kind of thin in places, and you have to go back over the areas until you get it fully covered. So it's still thin down here. Again, this is the Blue Haven. So once you have some layers down and you have a wet brush, you want to be careful, again, not to bring the wettest brush over to the line, to the border of the ombre. So I came in like here, and now that it's drying, I'm going to the edges where I'm blending once it starts to get a little drier. And again, this will be available as a replay, so I just decided to do it live as opposed to just, I would have recorded it while I was painting it anyway, but I just thought, well, I'll go live, and then you guys can watch it whenever you'd like. Okay, I'm coming back with the pink. And again, The pink isn't something that you have to do, it's just something I like. You can just gradiate the colors with blue. Okay. So again, now that it's a little drier, I can come back to the blend line on the edges. I'm probably using a little bit more pink than I did on the back. Okay, so now you can see it's a very, very distinct line, and you don't really want that. I want to bring my white up a little bit more, so I'm going to bring in some more white. And a lot of times you don't know how much white or blue or colors that you need in certain areas until you get going. I'm going to swoop it up the sides. And make sure I've got good coverage there. I'm going to bring it into the blue. Make sure I'm not seeing any of the MDF peeking through. Okay. So it's a very dry brush right now, and that's when you get some really good blending going on, because you're just dry brushing the colors together. And now I'm going to go back to the Blue Haven. And this is another reason why I was glad I had extra stencil brushes, because it just makes it easier when you're going back and forth between the colors. If you're having to dry off one color or change it out with another color, it's not as clean as keeping separate brushes. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with the Blue Haven, and now as it dries, I want to work on blending in the pink. So this will help to tone down a little bit of the pink and to bring it in to the blue. And now I'm going to go ahead and move to let me see, the next color is the Gingham blue. So the last color is Grecian blue. I think I've probably taken this higher, so this was a little bit lower. But every time you do this, it's going to be a little bit different. So again, this is the Gingham blue, and it's one of the newer DecoArt colors. Okay, so Gingham, and it's very wet, so I'm just going to kind of come in here and distribute my wetter color. And as it dries, I can start blending it down. The pink is kind of encroaching into the blue area anyway. I probably want to tone some of that pink down. It's just, the pink's supposed to be a suggestion. It's not supposed to be the dominant factor. I'm just going to go ahead and bring that up. Yeah, I love these, both the Gingham and the Grecian blues are really, I like these new colors. And they're very refreshing because, like I said, I have a tendency to gravitate to the turquoise and the aqua sky and the crystal blue. And this gives me more of a clear blue option. I like the colors a lot. So it means I'll occasionally use true blue instead of using more of those aqua colors, because I consider these more like true blue colors. Okay, so this is pretty wet. This is my Grecian, and it's going to be at the top. Okay, so as I start to blend, that's when I kind of start swirling. When I was laying down the colors, it wasn't as important, but when I'm blending, I tend to get swirly. And you could finish off with even a darker color up there if you want to. So, and so this is kind of, it is kind of dominant, and also it's thin in here, so I need to come back. I'll do a little bit more of the Fuchsia Pop. So again, when your brush is very, very wet, keep it away from the edges until your brush is a little drier and you can start blending. Like I said, this is a great technique for any kind of background that you're doing. "20 different kinds of pumpkin colors." Okay. That's interesting. I like some of their pumpkin colors. And I was using that neon torrid orange the other day. Man, it's really interesting because it's kind of translucent. And then when you put it down, it almost acts like a stain. I don't know. I really enjoy doing that on my pumpkin. It definitely made for a very bright pumpkin. Okay, so now I'm going to start blending these colors. So this is the Gingham. So I'm going to go back into the Gingham. This is one thing you got to keep your brush and your paint straight as you do this. So I'm pretty sure this is the right brush for this. Again, this is the wetter part of it, so keep it away from the edges until it starts to dry. Man, that doesn't... I'm starting to think that that is the wrong color. No? Blue Haven. Then Gingham. See, I told you, you got to keep them straight. Yeah, it's Gingham. Okay. All right, I'm going to start bringing this down a little bit into the pink, the Fuchsia Pop. Hi, Julia. I don't know if you guys are getting rain. We're getting more rain right now. Maybe my water bill won't be so bad this summer. Usually it's just a killer. Okay, so now I kind of want to tone down that Fuchsia Pop a little bit, although I can see some areas where the MDF wood is showing through. I don't want that, and I can feel it a little bit in here too. Okay, I'm gonna come back with the Grecian blue again. I know that one because that's the darker one. Oh, you are, Virginia. Yeah, you guys must be pretty warm in your neck of the woods, Virginia. So, and humid. Something I don't miss. I don't really miss humidity. You don't get a lot of that here in Colorado. Okay, so I was swirling, and I was just kind of using some vertical strokes to come in here, and I'll come back with some swirlies. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of rain and thunderstorms. Every year is so different. I know it was super hot last year. Okay, so I need more of the Gingham. I'm trying to keep this all straight in my head, what these colors are. So I'm laying down the wet paint, and then as everything starts to dry, I can start the swirl again. then I can see where I'm covering up that MDF. Try to get some good coverage. And if you wipe something out that you want back in, you just grab that color and reapply it until you're happy with the amount of color that you're getting. Oh, that's a good workout on my arm. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I have no upper body strength. Going back and forth, round and round. If I had my Apple Watch on my right hand, it probably wouldn't know what I was doing. Okay, so it's looking a little rough in the middle. So I am going to maybe I'm going to add in a little bit more Fuchsia Pop, because I can still see some of the MDF in the background there, and then I'll blend in the blues on top of it. Yeah, you don't want me to switch to my left arm, Loretta, if I'm doing this. I'm not sure what kind of results I would get. My husband is left-handed. He's able to use his left and his right hand to do various tasks. So, but he's mostly left-handed. Oh, look what I did. I was trying to get rid of some goopy pink that was sticking to my fingers. None of that's going to show. So we don't need to worry about it. It is not going to show. So it will be completely covered up. Okay, as this dries, we're going to just kind of start bringing this in a little bit to the other areas. In fact, I probably want to get a little bit more, but I want to make sure it's really dried off. Well, it's not a happy accident, but as it's not going to make any difference when I put something over it, I would rather not have it there. But anyway. So I'm definitely bringing in more of the Fuchsia Pop in this side than I did on the other side. It was much more of a afterthought there. So, and I tend to dry the pink before I start blending more colors, just because I don't want it to just turn into purple. Okay, so I'm feeling the need to have some more of the Blue Haven. That's the lighter of the blue, and I'm just trying to find my brush for that. Okay, so that is the Gingham, and that is the Blue Haven. Okay. All right. Okay, starting to dry, start blending. Probably didn't want to go up. That was still a little wet to be blending up into the pink. Getting a little bit drier now. Okay. Start blending in the Blue Haven into the pink. It's probably more than I want, but I can fix it. If I want more pink, I can come back in with more pink if I want. So I hope you all have some great plans for the weekend. We're not doing anything. I'm like, oh, you guys ought to be doing some really crazy, wild things. And then it's like, oh, I'm not doing anything. That is it's so different than that side. Huh. That often happens. Okay, I'm going to bring in some more of the gingham blue. And as you start doing more blending, you know, do a little bit more drying off on the paper towel. Because if you bring in a super wet brush, you can wipe out some of the blending that you've already done. So it's definitely looking a lot different than the other side. All of these things they do, everything is so unique each time you do it. I'm not saying that I don't like it, it's just very different. It's very different. And I do want to make sure I have enough pink over here and not just in the middle, because a lot of this is covered up. Let's see. Just out of curiosity. Let's see how much is kind of peeking through there. So you're getting some, just a little touch. I could probably use a little bit more over here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to the darker Grecian blue again, because I need a bit more coverage up here. And I'm going to try to bring that down a little bit. And again, remember, don't rub so hard that you end up with a hot spot. Okay, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more fuchsia out on the edges here. Okay, so just kind of swirl it in. I don't feel like I want to bring the pink any further down, but I don't mind blending it in to the blue. Okay, I'm almost done. I just want to do a little bit more blending where the blues meet the pink, but I'm actually liking that. There's a little bit of a line going on there that's not going to show once we put this here. And it's kind of like up to you if you want to do shading. I don't really know on the shading. Oh, this camera keeps moving, so you guys get to look at my shirt. But I don't know how I feel about shading on this. You know, you've done all this beautiful ombre, and then it's like, do I shade it or not? I don't know. Okay, so we're going to go back to the gingham blue. Okay. Ooh, that's very wet. Like I said, when you get to this step, you don't want your brush to be too wet. Okay, so I'm going to blend that up into the Grecian and down towards the pink. And then, let me see, I'm going to just bring it down a little bit. So I brought it all the way down to the Blue Haven. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I would do. You can do more blending, but that actually is pretty much what you need. Let's see what it looks like when we cover it up. Okay. Just gives you a little bit better idea of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Blue Haven. And I want this to be pretty dry. You could switch to a smaller dry brush too to do this. It would give you a little bit more control. A little darker. That's a little wet. Definitely a thinner dry brush would make this a little bit easier. I'm kind of turning this brush a little bit on its side so I'm not getting this wide of a brush mark. But yeah, that'd be easier with a thinner dry brush, but kind of gets the idea across. Okay. And voila, that is that. That's actually a little strong. I don't know if it needs to be quite as strong as that. I might send a little bit of that back. And that, again, is the Gingham blue. So I'm going to get a dry brush, and I'm just going to lightly go back over that just to blend that glare mark. Just want it a little bit more blended. Okay. Perfect. Well, I don't know if it's perfect, but I like it. Okay. So anyway, that kind of gives you an idea. I can blend it out a little bit more, but that kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with the ombre background. And then that is the lid that goes on top. And now I'm going to show you how to do that. So the ombre is really fun. It's easy. You only need a handful of colors that are all harmonious. So complementary. So these are the colors I used. And if you want it to come back with a bit of shading, and I'm not 100% sure where I'd even put the shading, sapphire would work. Okay. So Blue Haven, Gingham blue, Grecian blue, and if you want a darker color, sapphire, and then white. And of course we use the Fuchsia Pop as well. So, and I can also, this is 11 1/4. I can cut them bigger. It's just, if anybody needs bigger ones, I can cut them bigger. Okay, so this is really fun. It's just an easy technique to make something look old. So all you need is a silver, a gray, and a brown. Now this brown, it's a suede, so there's a little bit of texture in it, but you don't have to use this. You can just use regular, asphaltum or something like that, or espresso. So get yourself a sponge. It's important that you sponge this on because you want some texture. So just get a craft sponge or a makeup sponge, and whatever silver metallic that you're using, and go ahead. You'll need to sponge on 2 coats. I think that's the right way there. So you get a little bit of this bubbling action when you sponge, and that will create a little bit of texture. So this works for anything that you're trying to do that's got a metallic look to it. And it's super fast, super gratifying. So it doesn't have to be this project. It can be any kind of metallic thing you're doing. I tell you, I use a lot of sponges when I'm doing these laser cut pieces, especially for a number of reasons. You get good coverage, but you also get that interesting texture. And a lot of times, if I have big pieces, I have rollers. I use paint rollers. And I keep some of the primary colors. I have rollers that I put into Ziploc bags. So if I need to do a large snowman and I want to start with light buttermilk, I'll roll the paint on. And you get a really good coverage, but you do get a nice texture that you just can't get with a brush. So, okay, so second application of your silver. And you can be messy with this. I mean, if you get a little extra texture, more the better. More the better. Okay. That's good texture and good coverage. And you know, you can make this fancier. You can do use an angled brush and throw in some shading on the lid, but I'm not doing that. So with these laser cut kits, you can, you know, you don't have to do them as elaborate as you would something that you're painting on canvas. Let's be honest. Okay, that's mostly dry. Now, I used to always love everything being super shiny, and I thought, you know, I used to paint in so much pearlescent and metallic. It was criminal. And I only recently realized that maybe not having everything shine is a good thing. So your eye, if it's looking at metal, it's not seeing sheen come back, you know, 100%. There's going to be some matte areas. So I'm going to take slate gray, and I'm going to take my dirty sponge, and I'm going to put it in the slate gray, and I'm going to come back and add in just some matte here and there, some of the gray, just here and there, so that it's not, I'm dulling some of the sheen. So in my youth, I would have thought that was just, how could you do that? I just loved everything shiny. So that takes down, and I think where the person who really showed me that is taking a lot of classes with Erica Joanne. So now I've taken down some of the sheen, and I probably could take down a little bit more. And you can see I'm not pressing very hard. You don't want to press hard. And you also want to use the texture to your advantage. So some of the gray is hitting on the high spots of the texture that you laid down. Okay, and dry that. So if you have a product like this, or if you have some texture granules that you can put in some brown, having that texture just kind of makes it look a little bit more like rust. Okay, so I've got that there. I'm just using my dirty sponge. Okay. And I'm just going to come in little places here and there. Again, very light touch. And then use your finger to help as well. So you're just laying down a little bit of a kind of a rust effect. You can kind of go along the edges of each of these little ridges. Load it up again. Kind of just go in and touch until you get kind of a look you like. So as much or as little as you want. So, and that's it. That's all you have to do on those. So it's very, very easy and very gratifying to do that. So it's now a little bit more rustic. And that might not be the look you want. So if you don't want to do the rusty effect, just do the silver with a little bit of the slate gray matte on top of it, if you don't want it to have that rusty effect. And if you don't like the rusty effect, you can just paint over it and start over. And of course you can also use gray and then use white to do some highlighting, and darker tones of gray to do some shading, and have it all be matte, and have the white carry the illusion of highlights and sheen. So anyway, so that is all. That was pretty fast and easy. So let me see if I can get my picture to come back up. There I am. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then this evening I might play around with the snowman. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and that it's nice and cool where you are, and spend some time with your family, or garden, or do your crafts, or anyway, anything you can do to avoid cleaning the house. Okay, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. I will catch you later. Love you lots. See ya.